historical document that was signed by Jacob Benet in 1805. He was one of the sons of John Benet, and he was one of the original register and recorders of Bedford County.
Join our guests for insights on issues impacting local government and the citizens of Pennsylvania. Created by the Pennsylvania State Association of Boroughs, Inside Pennsylvania Boroughs connects you to legislation and policy that will affect you and your family. Your host, Chris Kapp, and his guests discuss current affairs that matter to you most. Connect with your state by tuning into Inside Pennsylvania Boroughs on Sundays here on PCN.
I'm here with Representative Matt Dowling, Republican representing Fayette and Somerset counties. Thank you for being with us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
You recently announced legislation that would support Pennsylvania's event industry. Can you tell us more about your bill and why it was necessary?
Sure. Well, kind of looking back at the necessity of this bill, in the month of July, on July 15th, Governor Wolf announced that there would be an order taking effect the next day that changed a number of items. One of the items that's been highly publicized is the occupancy of restaurants. It went from 50% to 25%. But something that hasn't been discussed as much is the fact that event spaces, which hold what the order refers to as discrete indoor functions, so that'd be a wedding, maybe a communion party, graduation party, those are held not to a capacity percentage, but instead to 25 people. That's the maximum cap. So the legislation that I'm introducing that has bipartisan support right now would allow 50% of the venue's occupancy to be utilized. I have a venue here that seats 600 people. They could have 300 people at a wedding or a function, allowing for proper social distancing. And then we also have written into the legislation that all CDC guidelines and requirements would also have to be followed. So you'd have masks and some stipulations with caterers where they would have to serve the meal. You wouldn't be able to have a self-serve buffet, but we'd be following all those guidelines. It just opens up these facilities for a little more people to be able to attend these events.
And where is your bill currently in the legislative process?
So we've drafted the legislation. A co-sponsorship memo has gone out. We don't have a clear idea of when it's going to run out of committee, so there hasn't been any vote taken on it. However, I represent the same area as Senator Stefano, who is the chairman of the Law and Justice Committee, which in the Senate, which is where this bill would go. Senator Stefano was at my press conference last week and has committed that as soon as this would get to the Senate, that he would run it out of his committee. And as I said, there is bipartisan support right now. So I look for this bill to hopefully move very quickly through the process, and maybe we could see something happen during the month of September.
The PIAA recently gave schools in Pennsylvania the green light to have fall sports this year. Do you support schools continuing to have sports in the fall?
I do. And, you know, a number of my schools in the area I represent are going to have sports. Some of them have decided to forgo that until the first of the year on the governor's strong recommendation. I think there's a safe way to go about living our lives. And we saw throughout summer practices that social distancing and the utilization of different cleaning products between use by student athletes was being implemented. They're using their trainers to help implement some of these guidelines. So I saw schools that were very much committed to doing this the right way. And because of that, I think there's a way that fall sports could be played. And then I think the further question is about spectators. And there's been a lot of discussion about that. I believe that parents really have a right to see their children if it can be done safely. And I think there are discussions on how to do that properly with maybe only home team being allowed. But those discussions can lead to something I think is very fruitful, very positive. and it would allow parents to watch their kids play perhaps in their last year of high school sports.
Over the past couple of weeks, several counties in Pennsylvania have experienced some spikes in COVID-19 cases. What is the trend of COVID-19 in your district?
So in the Somerset County area that I serve, we're under 200 cases. It's slowing. In the Fayette County area, we saw a bump of about 125 cases within the last few weeks. It's important to note, though, that that was tied primarily to one outbreak in the Fayette County prison. We're seeing that across the Commonwealth right now. A lot of these outbreaks are institutionalized, so you're seeing them in prisons, maybe as we saw earlier this spring in nursing home facilities and in hospital facilities. So I think those are the areas where we need to give our most focus to. But it kind of paints what I believe is an inaccurate or unfair picture. If those 120 cases weren't added to Fayette County, over 100 of those being attributed to one outbreak in the county prison and courthouse, our statistics would still be relatively low. Here it has us with, by population density, one of the highest percentages within the Commonwealth. But again, it's only tied to that one outbreak in that one institution.
Regarding people in your district, what are some of the main concerns that you hear from people on COVID-19?
One thing that I'm hearing over and over is the fact that families need to get back to work, that they need to be able to support their kids, that they need to be able to generate revenue and pay their bills. The economic impacts of the mitigation of COVID-19 are something I think are going to far outlive the virus itself. And so we have to look at how we can safely, and I always add that we need to safely reopen Pennsylvania, our businesses, put people back to work. That ties back into the event industry. Our caterers that work in these event facilities have laid off basically all of their staffs. I have one catering business that lost over 70% of their revenue this year. So it's just down to the owner working the few jobs that she has herself. That means that people are on unemployment, and our state Department of Labor and Industry has really not met the need of handling the unemployment cases. In fact, I think it's something that there should be hearings about, that there needs to be something figured out as to why they were so inadequate in their response. I do know that these are, as many people say, unprecedented times, and that happens with unemployment as well. But labor and industry just could not keep up. And in my district, we've had over 300 cases of unemployment compensation where they've come to us. We've tried to help them with those situations, and they're closed cases. We still have about 300 cases that are open. And then across the entire Commonwealth, there are a lot of people waiting for benefits now in August that should have started in March. So reopening the economy, allowing people to go to work and put food on their table, that's the biggest thing I'm hearing from my constituents.
And for businesses that have been impacted by the pandemic, what are some resources or options that are still available that you're aware of for people to get some support?
Well, I think there are some individualized programs that are out there. I always invite my businesses to contact our office and have a conversation about what's available. If we don't know, we can research it. But across the Commonwealth, any of their state representatives, regardless of party, I know are interested in helping their businesses. So I contact their offices directly. Also, your state senators are a resource. The Department of Economic and Community Development, often called DCED, they have a number of programs out there. So their website is a great resource as well.
And finally, aside from your new events legislation, what further legislation are you working on, or would you like to see to continue to support people who have been affected by the pandemic?
Well, one of the things I've been working on for two sessions and has passed out of the House and is sitting in the Senate is a piece of legislation that deals with individuals' rights to open carry firearms constitutionally. Those rights shall not be infringed. However, within the disaster declaration, they are not allowed to open carry. It's part of the code that needs to be revised. And like I said, that language has passed out of the House and is currently sitting in the Senate. I'd love to see a vote on that, allowing people to exercise their constitutional duty during a state of emergency, their constitutionally protected right during a state of emergency to open carry.
All right, Representative Matt Dowling, Republican representing Fayette and Somerset counties. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
PCN Profiles gives you a candid look inside the lives and careers of notable Pennsylvanians. Hear personal stories from leaders of business, politics, science, sports, and the arts in their own words. PCN Profiles airs Sunday nights at 8:30. PCN, Pennsylvania History and Culture.
I'm here with Mark Compton, CEO of the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission. Thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
So at the onset of the pandemic, what was the immediate effect on the Turnpike?
Yeah, so if you go back to those early days in mid-March, right around St. Patrick's Day, our traffic was down about between 70 and 80%. So that was based on this time over last year. So it gives you the extent of what was transpiring here at the Turnpike.
And since then, how has it changed from that onset to where we are right now?
Yeah, so where we are right now is just last week, we were down 20% in traffic and 25% in revenue from this time last year. So what this has cost us since the end of July is roughly about $187 million from where we should have been this year based on our traffic and revenue projections.
And for people, well, for some background, what are the main sources of income for the Turnpike?
Yeah, really the only source of income is our travelers, our customers that pay their tolls. So it's all toll revenue generated system. We don't receive any federal funds. We are fully supported by our customers.
So for people who work for the Turnpike, either as toll workers or in another capacity, what has been the impact of the Turnpike's employees?
Well, the biggest impact has been on our toll collectors. So once that weekend hit in the middle of March, based on the safety of our customers and our employees, we ceased cash collections at those locations. So the only two modes to pay on our system was Easy Pass and then also by toll by plate, which we were equipped to do. So after several weeks and seeing that this was going to be an extended pandemic or an extended time frame, we did have to lay off 492 toll collectors because we no longer will be accepting cash today and then for the future of the commission. And that was a plan that was to be underway next year, at the end of next year. But because we were equipped in the lanes to do so, we went ahead and pulled the trigger early.
You mentioned that from that immediate onset of the pandemic and the loss there, up until now, things have improved, but still not a significant amount to the way that it was before. How long do you think, or do you anticipate it will be until the Turnpike is back to operating at the same level that it was before the pandemic?
Sure, that's a really good question. So we have what we call traffic and revenue consultants who've been with us for a long time who project this. So they're sort of the weathermen of our industry. And what they're saying is that our revenue will be back in about 2 years. And the traffic could take all the way for another 4 years till we get our full traffic back. And that would be January 2020 traffic to get to those numbers. And there's a whole lot of factors that go into that. But as you're seeing, as you're sitting at home now, commuter patterns could be forever changed as a part of that. And that's a big concern for us, especially down in the Philadelphia area where we generate a lot of our traffic.
Has the Turnpike received any aid either from the state or federal government since the pandemic began?
No, it has not. Now, as part of what the Turnpike is required to do by law, in a law that was set in 2007, is to pay PennDOT on $400 million and give a total of $450 million to PennDOT for what is now for mass transit improvements. What we have done is asked not to have to pay that or get an extension. And heretofore, for the first two quarterly payments, PennDOT and the governor's office has permitted us by agreement to extend and not make those payments. So that has been the one request that we made, not that we receive funding, but for us not to have to pay out.
For road projects and for road work that was either already going on or planned to be going on, have they been impacted at all by the pandemic, or will those projects be pushed back or continue to operate?
Yeah, so they certainly have. There was a stopping part during early on until we put a COVID-19 plan in place. And then those projects got restarted. But as it related to our capital plan, our fiscal year begins June 1st. So as you can think about it, all the way back from March, we were in the process of developing that plan. So what we've done is for this year that we're currently in, fiscal year 2021, we cut the capital plan by about 25%. Now, we made the decision not to stop any projects that were currently in process because we didn't think it was responsible. So next year, if we have to, and we're hoping we don't, we could cut it by 38% based on new project starts. So to your point, about 25% of projects, those would all be new starts, have been delayed as a part of the pandemic.
How does Pennsylvania's Turnpike and the impact that the pandemic has had on it compared to the experiences of other highway systems in our area, in New York, New Jersey, for example? Is Pennsylvania similar? Has the impact been worse or better?
It's a really good question, and we do benchmark ourselves against all of those: New York Thruway, New Jersey Turnpike, Ohio Turnpike, Florida Turnpike. And I can tell you, similar but different, and I know that's a horrible way to say that, but why I say that is because New Jersey has come back quicker, in large part because we believe because of the shore traffic. New York, I think, continues to lag behind us, and Ohio is very similar. So you're starting to see gains like we are. Our industry, the toll industry, has come back quicker than transit and some others. But we're all coming back sort of at a little different pace. We're gaining about 1% to 2% of traffic per week as I see it, and others are starting to see that same growth now too.
And aside from the tolls, will people's driving experience be on the Turnpike be any different than it was before?
As right now, because there's no longer toll collectors in the lane, there's the good side of that is there's no stopping at any of the toll booths. And also before, when we had the toll collectors, as you may recall, there were some of our interchange that were Easy Pass only. That created a lot of confusion for our customers. So now, no matter where you get on the system, anyone, regardless if you had Easy Pass or not, has full access to our system. So in some ways, we've actually opened up the system a little more now because anybody, regardless of which method of payment they choose, can ride the system and get on and exit where they choose.
And finally, moving forward, as we try to get past this this pandemic, what are your main concerns or priorities to try to get the Turnpike back on track?
Well, I must tell you, through this whole thing, I've been reminded of this quote from Mr. Grove from Intel. And what he always said was, bad companies are destroyed by crisis, good companies survive them, great companies are improved by them. I and all the folks here at the Commission are committed to improving our system as a result of this. And we continue to say, we're not going to forget what got us through this and make sure that we do that moving forward. So we're taking good notes, having a lot of great conversations about what's getting us through this time. And that's what's going to propel us when we finally get past this and can burn these stupid masks. You need the mask. I don't mean that they're stupid, but I think we're all ready to burn them whenever we can, but obviously not until it's appropriate. So we're going to be poised. We're going to be ready for the future. And we're excited for the employer we can be for our employees. We're excited for the business partners that we can be for our stakeholders. And we're most excited for what we can do for our customers moving forward.
All right, Mark Compton, CEO of the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
The eyes of the nation are on Pennsylvania as a key influencer to the 2020 election. PCN has over 25 years of trusted state government coverage. Our network is your platform to connect directly with Pennsylvania voters. Whether it's a presidential race, statewide campaign, or local cause, our viewers are ready to hear from you. Book your ad now. PCN, your access to Pennsylvania voters.
I'm here with Tina Pickett, Republican representing Bradford, Sullivan, and Susquehanna counties. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
This week, you requested from Governor Wolf more consistent guidance for Pennsylvania schools reopening. Can you tell us about your request and why you felt it was necessary?
I really did. I think that the governor, throughout this entire circumstance we've been in, but especially when it came to the schools, did not communicate as he should have. And really what I was urging him to do is not communicate with me, but to communicate with these schools better They put a tremendous amount of work. I've talked to many superintendents, many school staffers, many board members, put a tremendous amount of work into putting together a circumstance that would be safe for the students and for the teachers and for all staff involved. To have it and have him say for several months now, local control, you'll make the decisions, the school staff and administration will make the decisions. You know, a couple of days out from school starting, he says, nope, I'll make the decisions. And here's what it is. Threw them all off course from what they were trying to plan for their schools. Also, I really feel that in so many instances, the governor has not reacted to things in the state on a regional basis. All parts of the state are not experiencing the same things, do not have the same circumstances. When it comes to schools, who knows better than the local superintendent and the school board and the staff of that school? They know their circumstances. They know what they need to do. No one wants anybody to be sick. No one wants anything like that to happen. But they know best how they can protect their staff and their students.
Schools in Pennsylvania can now move forward with deciding whether they want to do fall sports according to the PIAA. Where do you stand on schools continuing to move on with fall sports?
Well, I can tell you that I had instant contact from a multitude of parents, especially lots of families, and then of course from school officials. And they really felt that the PIAA had done a tremendous amount of background work, had worked with them, had communicated with them. PIAA thought that they had an understanding with the governor on how they could go forth. Yeah, there have to be restrictions. There have to be differences in the way it might have been in the past, and maybe not for the complete year, but for start off. And I think that the schools were prepared, the students were prepared for that. They want to play. Are they going to have a big audience? Probably not to start off. But really, when you look at even the average high school stadium, you can certainly put in a certain number of parents. You know, they did this for graduation ceremonies. Graduation ceremonies, I went to several that were on the football field, and then you let a certain number of parents in to according to the students that you have graduating. I think they could work something like that out, and I think he needed to give them all a chance to do that on their own basis.
Some counties in recent weeks have experienced some spikes in COVID-19 cases. What is the trend of COVID-19 in your district?
Actually, we are very steadily going downward. We have not had any real intense spikes in my general area. We're grateful for that. We're thankful for that. Yes, sure, maybe people are working really hard at really working at all of the different basic health rules that go along with this. Also, we're blessed with a lot of space. We're blessed with a not so heavy a population. I realize it's different in the city area than it is going to be here. Therefore, we should be able to do things differently, right down to running our businesses differently.
And what are the testing capabilities in your district?
I'm sorry, the what?
The COVID-19 testing
capabilities. We have had a few of the, shall we say, out in the field, mobile type testing circumstances. They never really gathered enough numbers to make it justified to put them there, so the Department of Health moved them someplace else, very understandably. So right now, if you need to get a test, you're going to go to one of the hospital facilities or one of their clinics, which is available and does a good job and is timely. Timeliness is so critical in testing, and I have to say the mobile people were not coming back. I had people call me and say, I was tested 10 days ago. I was tested 14 days ago. I don't have results. Well, gee, you can't make important decisions when those numbers are coming back so late.
What are some of the main concerns that you hear from people in your district about COVID-19?
Well, particularly, well, there's a number of things, but one of the huge things that our office staff has worked with from day one on this, and we were fully staffed throughout, has been unemployment. So, okay, the governor makes a decision to shut the state down. It almost seems like nobody really thought through in that next 24 hours. There's 2 to 3 million people who are instantly unemployed and are going to be coming to us for unemployment dollars. They seem to be almost completely impossible to handle those numbers. I still get phone calls every single week from people who applied in March or April and don't have money. And they finally, at the last minute, after they've tried to call, they've tried to chat, they've tried to do everything they can do, tried to email, they'll say, okay, let me try the state rep's office. And we do our best to try to get them on a list that the LNI law allows us to submit to them to be able to get them to review their cases. In general, they do get solved, probably though another 2 to 3 weeks before they're solved.
And for businesses that have been impacted by the pandemic, what are some of the resources or options that you're aware of that are still available for people to use to get support?
Well, the answer that's not enough, particularly for a small business. Small business does not have a lot of resources. Small business, we know, is overall the largest employer in Pennsylvania when you take them as an entire umbrella group of employers. But on the other hand, they don't have large resources. They don't have the ability to go to the bank and get big loans. They don't have the ability to keep operating when all of a sudden, overnight, without warning, they're shut down. They don't have their revenue. They try to keep their staff on. Many of them did get the PPP from the federal government. Seemed like a fair amount of money when we were talking about being down 2 or 3 weeks. 4, 5, 6 months later, it's totally beyond gone. And they are really, really struggling to try to make sure they don't lose their business. And some of them are losing their business completely.
Is there any federal funding still available for businesses to apply to, or do they have to go to more private, separate institutions to get some support?
Well, I think it's they're on an off and on basis. I know that some have been able to get some along the way. That PPP was there for a while in the beginning. There's been some CARES grant money that I think more or less the state and local counties that got that have been trying to put that out for small grants to small businesses to try to help them with payroll and try to help them with a mortgage payment and so on. Clearly, it's not enough based on the amount of shutdown time, and particularly the hospitality industry. Tourism is the number 2 industry in PA. Ag is first, tourism is second. The most revenue, the most number of people employed, seriously shut down for a long time.
And finally, with the House set to get back in session soon, what legislation are you working on, or would you like to see to continue to help support people who have been affected by the pandemic?
Well, the very first thing that, in spite of all the things that I've just talked about, the election is looming. And we need to do next week some things that are going to make the election more secure, more safe, so that people have the confidence in the election. So I'm sure we're going to be looking at some election bills next week. I'm also told, and this is unofficial, that we may be looking strongly at the possibility of some veto overrides on some of the bills that the governor has vetoed. So we'll see what comes down with that. We'll know by next Monday, probably late Monday into Tuesday morning, exactly what's on the agenda. But I know that we do need to make some changes in the election circumstances, one of them being moving the date further away when you might be able to make an application for a mail-in ballot, because the timing right now logistically does not work.
All right, Representative Tina Pickett, Republican representing Bradford, Sullivan, and Susquehanna counties. Thank you so much for your time.
A pleasure. Thank you.
The 19th Amendment gave women the constitutional right to vote. This year marks the centennial celebration